Welcome to my channel. I appreciate every single person that comes to my channel, every one of you that subscribes, everyone that likes my videos, that comments on my videos, or shares my videos. I'm really thankful for the traffic. Have you ever wondered why or how we got to be so partisan in this country, where it seems like it's everybody at everybody's throats and politics is so vicious? Well, it might have something to do with the fact that we've abandoned the Constitution that this country was founded on. Let me explain what I mean. When the Constitution was set up in 1787, it was designed based on the failures of the previous Articles of Confederation to balance the power between different parts of government so that no single department of the government could become too powerful. But it was also designed to take advantage of the greed of men. The founders knew when they created the Constitution that men would always try to take advantage of other men, and that they would try to gain more power and take power away from other people. And so they specifically set up the Constitution in such a way that that could not happen very easily. Now, Article 1 of the Constitution puts all the legislative powers into Congress, which consists of two bodies, the Senate and the House of Representatives. According to the Constitution, the House of Representatives is composed of members that are chosen every 2 years by the people. So that's very similar to a democracy. But the Senate was composed of 2 senators from each state chosen by the legislature for 6 years. And each senator has 1 vote. So by creating 2 houses of Congress that are unbalanced in terms of the representation, what they did was they set up a system whereby the people would have a voice, but the states would also have a voice. Why? Because the senators were elected by the legislatures of the states, not by the people. And so, because those are the people that elect them, those would be the people that they represent, and those would be the people whose concerns they would adhere to as closely as possible. But that's not the way it is now. The 17th Amendment changed that. You can read about that on Wikipedia if you want, if you're interested in getting the details of it. But basically what happened was some people started stirring up disenchantment with the way senators were elected, because they claimed that they were prone to bribery, that they would try to buy their office by influencing legislators. They claimed this with the media's favorite phrase, without any evidence. But they did. And then the second issue that they raised was that there could be contention in a state which would keep a senator from being appointed, and therefore that state would not be represented in the Senate. Now, that was an issue, but it was a very minor issue. It didn't happen very often. And when it did, it was entirely the fault of the state. So if the state didn't want to be represented in the federal government, that's their choice. They get to do that. But the people weren't happy with it, and so they fell to the siren call of, let's find a solution that makes it easier for us to get senators into the Senate. And so we changed to a popular vote system. So now what we have is 2 houses of Congress that are elected identically and have the same concerns and the same interests as each other. They're both completely partisan. The founders knew that the House of Representatives would be a rough and tumble, brawling type atmosphere because it was entirely partisan. The people that were representing the states were elected by the people, and therefore they would have the interests of the people they were elected by at heart. And those interests would differ across states, across counties, across cities, even across precincts. And so they set that up knowing full well that the House of Representatives would be where they got into fisticuffs, where they fought hard, and they fought in a partisan manner. But they set up the Senate so that it would be a deliberative body that would consider the interests of the state, not the people of the state. By changing that system, what we did was we lessened the power that the states have and increased the power that the federal government has. And we turned the Senate into another partisan body that bickers and fights and complains and so forth and so on. And so you see what you see today, which is senators trying to get a political advantage over other senators. The 17th Amendment, when it was written and when it was ratified, said that the Senate shall be composed of 2 senators from each state, elected by the people thereof. No longer elected by the legislature. That's the change that was made. So what that did, and this is something about the historical background, which I'll also put that link in the description so you can read it for yourself. But what that did was it completely changed the composition of the Senate. If you look at this map, you have several color codes, but there's 2 that I'm interested in, the red and the yellow. The red color code is states that have Republican control of the governorship and both houses of the legislature. The yellow is states that have complete control, the Republicans have complete control of the legislature, but Democrats control the governorship. So if you look at those 2 and you add the 2 together, that's 30 states out of the 50 where Republicans are in control, and under the old system, under the system that was designed by our founders, they would be able to elect senators, which likely would be Republicans, which would mean that Republicans would hold 60 seats in the Senate. Republicans don't even hold 50 seats now. How is that possible? Because it's partisan now. It's no longer the states electing people. So that is the impact of the 17th Amendment. It completely changed the system of government. And it changed it in a way that was bad for the country, bad for the states, bad for the individuals, and good for the politicians. They're the ones who benefit from it. So they're not going to change now. They're not going to go back to the old system. And it's likely impossible to convince the people of the country to do that because they think that they have more power if they can vote for a senator, which is silly because the greatest power you have is at the local level where there's fewer voters vying with you to elect someone. At the federal level, you have very little power at all. The least power you have of all is voting for the president. You should know that. It's obvious. But Americans aren't taught the Constitution in school. They don't learn the Constitution on their own. They don't study about how our government was designed and why it was designed that way. And so they're left to the whims and the desires of the politicians who will do whatever they want to do without any regard to what matters to the people. So that's the reason why we have all the partisanship we have now. And instead of having a constitutional republic, what we have now is a democracy. And as we all know, if you've studied anything at all about the history of our country, our founders rejected democracy for the very reason that democracies don't last. They fail because there's partisan bickering. That's why we were set up as a constitutional republic, and that's why our country is failing now, because we've abandoned the system that was designed to keep this country whole. As always, I pray that you will be abundant, that you will live a long life, and that you'll be healthy. and that God will keep you safe. And I pray that He'll do the same for every person you love. And I also pray that you'll be anxious for nothing, but in all things, through prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, you will let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God that passes all understanding will keep your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. This is the Vietnam era vet out.